Shalom, my name is Yehonatan Ben Devoy. This is going to be video 3 of idolatry. In the previous video, I made the case that the definition of idolatry evolved between the first and the third centuries. This is going to address the point that was brought up by Impact Video Ministries. According to Impact Video Ministries, idolatry is a lust. He uses Colossians 3:5 to make his point. I thought it was a good idea to address his argument, then make a scholarly argument as towards why his scholar that he referenced focused on outdated information. Colossians 3:5. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanliness, inordinate affections, evil, conspicuousness, covetousness, which is idolatry. Anyways, the point that we're bringing up is covetousness, which is idolatry, that part. According to Impact Video Ministries, he uses this verse to prove that idolatry is covetousness. Therefore, it doesn't require a statute. That covetousness is simply a desire. So I researched this verse and its words. I found some things that are quite striking that I think everyone ought to know. The Greek word for covetousness is actually better translated as greed. Moreover, the word for idolatry, idolatria, may not necessarily mean idolatry. I mean, I understand why they got that, essentially. Eidolon and also latreia, which is basically used of religious worship. However, for this part of our study, we're not going to focus on Thayer's Greek lexicon. Instead, I am going to use the BDAG and the TDNT. The BDAG is considered one of the most authoritative lexicons of today. The TDNT is the theological dictionary of the New Testament. The Greek word, which is translated as idolatry, only has 4 occurrences in the New Testament. It doesn't even illustrate the act of idolatry ever in connection to it, except that of behavior that is done repeatedly over and over. So, how do we know that the translator was just a translator, just assigned? So how do we know that the translation that they gave, which is idolatry, in those 4 occurrences, how do we know that he did just that the translator didn't assign it a meaning? It's a good question to ask. I mean, I can sort of see it with latreia or whatever, but let's wait. All right, let's follow this for a moment. According to the TDNT, the word that is translated as idolatry only comes from Christian writings. The word is never used in pagan writings to mean worship of the gods. It is never used by Philo or Josephus. In fact, the Christian writings that is used for idolatry, Tertullian is the one who is most directly responsible. He changed the interpretation of it in the 3rd century. As I have illustrated, ultimately, the part of Colossians 3:5 could also legitimately be read as greed, which is service of the idols. Now, to a Jew, Service of the idols and idolatry are two very separate things. Let me explain my meaning. In, what was it called? In the Mishnah, basically, it illustrates that, well, actually, first, let's not get to the Mishnah first. Let's illustrate this. First, we are commanded to not serve Hashem in the same method as the heathen. Idolatry will constitute the death penalty. Avodah Zarah, on the other hand, may not constitute the death penalty, which this is considered Avodah Zarah, serving the Almighty in the same manner as the heathen. I mean, there may be times when you can put in a pagan practice in the worship of the Almighty, and ultimately you it may not necessarily constitute the death penalty. That's the reasoning why it is not considered idolatry, because it's the penalty aspect. Idolatry will always constitute death, essentially. Avodah Zarah may not. Now, continuing forward, it has been reasoned that it could be reasoned that this was revelation that Tertullian was given in the Spirit, but we know for certain that the ruling at the time of Yeshua recorded idolatry as needing an image. Now, let me make this point. If Yeshua, who was the only perfect individual in all of history, didn't think he would teach that, don't you think that he would teach that, essentially? If he didn't teach that or change the interpretation, why not? Why did the revelation have to wait 3 more extra centuries in order to be corrected, supposedly? You see, it's just not logical. Next video, I'm going to illustrate why Impact Video Ministries got it completely wrong as towards idolatry. Why you are allowed to do a work of desire and still not have it constitute idolatry.